Hey, welcome back to the Scope Creepers podcast. My name is Aramis, and I still have not had my coffee this morning, so my apologies if this intro is a little rough. Today I have a lovely conversation with Trenton, who I met at my local International Game Developer Association here in the Twin Cities. If you are interested and you are in the Twin Cities, come stop by. Our first meeting is next Wednesday. And you can search for more information by just simply typing in IGDATC. Is a hard order of letters. I'm dyslexic, and I think I got that order right, but International Game Developer Association, Twin Cities. Trenton is on the board of that. He is into these amazing things called mega games, which we talk about, and he is also has a huge, long history of working in the gaming industry, as well as being an indie developer himself, working on a lovely roguelike, right now just called Tap, but we talk a lot about roguelikes because I love roguelikes, if you don't know that about me, and I could talk about game mechanics and stuff for hours. Heck, I could talk about gaming and stuff for hours. One of the biggest things is that he's helped foster a huge community of game developers and created community around it, and that's something that was really important to me last year. And so being able to start engaging those communities and stuff like that is awesome. And I talk a lot about community with Trenton during this conversation because it's something that I think I was missing. And even moving into the new year, one of my big resolutions or goals for this year is to go to some convention. I've never been to one before. I want to go to one. Thinking GDC up here in March, but we'll see what ends up happening. I hope you enjoy this episode with Trenton. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so where I wanted to start is that looking back at the last year, some of my favorite things, or I guess even like the thing that I'm most proud of, is that I started to engage in community in game development. I think the first time I met you, you were talking to me, you just looked up and you're like, where have you been? Why have you not been at these meetings over the last 5 years? And like, that's a good question. And I think a lot of people don't engage in community. Can you talk about the role of community in your game development journey or just your gaming history in general and how that's impacted you?
Yeah. I guess I'll start from more recent and work my way back because yeah, that's kind of what comes to mind when you say that. So like Deanna and I moved up here back in 2017 and I had always kind of wanted to check out like the local scene, IGDA, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of never super got around to it, and just kind of always intended to. And then when the pandemic happened and we were all isolating, it was pretty rough for me for a while. I mean, for a lot of people, right? And it made me realize, like I'd always considered myself like pretty introverted,
Mm-hmm.
but it made me realize that, oh wait, I still need social. I need that social connection, and I was kind of missing that kind of community aspect that I had in the past, and didn't really realize it until it was very evident that like I couldn't see anyone, and it's like, of course I'm missing that. And so that was a big lesson for me of coming out of that, is just like I need that, even if it doesn't feel like I do. Like if I'm not getting that regularly, it
Yeah.
affects me without me really realizing it. And so when the local IGDA here started up in-person events again after COVID, it was actually a holiday party. That was their first in-person event, and I went, and a bunch of other people did too, and like a lot of new people, a lot of old people. I mean, the chapter here has been around for a long time now. And so like there's a lot of kind of OG people that sometimes come and you hear stories and it's like, I didn't even know y'all existed, but I've been going ever since, and that's been, I mean, it's been so important, like health wise, mental health wise, but then
Yeah.
also just being able to talk shop, and being able to, it's always nice to like when you start off, you're a sponge and you're trying to suck up all the information, all the knowledge, all the wisdom.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to a point where it's like you start having opinions, you start having your own knowledge, your own wisdom, and then it becomes more and more rare to have those like good conversations where you're really learning things or you're being challenged and stuff, and it becomes harder to find those situations. And for me, it's always been important for me to like to find those situations where I can have that kind of discussion where because like I start learning things about myself too in those discussions. Like I actually feel really strongly about this. I didn't realize this, or I have, an example would be like one night, like we started talking about coyote time, in platformers and
Yeah.
how it's kind of become this like uh, almost biblical thing that we tell new developers, like you have to
Like
have
add
coyote
this
time when it
thing.
comes
Yeah.
to platforming, and I had just been repeating that and stuff, and talking to one of the Scots, he started challenging me, and I still think it has a super important place, but like just talking to it, just like you start realizing it's like that's not it's like that sort of mechanic is very specific of what it's trying to achieve, and not every game should have that,
Hmm.
or the level it has can change. Um, so just those types of things of like being able to kind of check yourself and be like, oh wait, like it's not just this common knowledge that you have to do, or it's something that like you think is really useful, but then you start to talk it out and you start to realize it's like, oh, it's very situational.
Yeah.
um One example of just like how important it is to like get those conversations going.
It's
uh
almost the soft side of skills because there's so many hard skills at the beginning. What syntax
mhm,
do you use? How do you make audio? Add and like when do you trigger that stuff? Like all those really like hard skills that tutorials can do. But it sounds like you're talking about the soft skill side of it of like you've gotten over that mountain, you can make games. And
mhm.
then what is your taste in like style? What do you like to build? What do you like to do? And that's where those conversations feel helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And so I think I went on a tangent there, but so that community aspect, I guess, is a good example of it's not just the like, I mean, we're literally social animals, right? Like we
Yeah.
have to have that
Yes.
to it's part of our being to have that. Um, so we need that regardless. And
Hmm.
so if you don't have that, like seek it out. And if it happens to be, a game dev community, that can be great. Um, but then also on top of that, professionally, it's awesome to have other people that are spending a lot of their time thinking about these same things, or struggling with the same the same problems. And so that, I mean, that's been, I go every week. It feels like it's a big part of my life. And like I I worry about the people, like that's kind of why I asked you when you showed up. It's like, where have you been? It's like, why, like, because we get people that come in and it's just like they've been just kind of working on their stuff and have never thought to like come hang out and talk about stuff, and we wonder like how many how many of y'all are out there, because I was that same person.
Yeah.
Deanna and I were doing full-time indie development pre-COVID, and never thought to to look, to actually get out the door and go do it. I mean, you get busy, I get it, but
Yeah.
uh
I
yeah,
think
so
part of
kind
it
of.
too is that work can sometimes fill that social slot.
Hmm.
Like being now a full-time developer for 2 years, kind of doing it solo, I didn't realize how how much work does that for. It gives you like you have the same manager typically, so you can like bitch to this
Hmm.
person and like moan and be like,
Yeah.
we have the same kind of circumstances. And then when you start going on something alone, it's like, oh, work played a huge role in just like day-to-day socialization, even virtually. I think it could still fill that same role. But
Yeah.
it's been all the things you touched on and hit on are huge with just in person. Someone understanding the same problem. Oh yeah, I hate doing controller support for, or I
Hmm.
love controller support because I design my games this way from the ground up. And you can like get these different perspectives in person and just like, um, there's something nice about walking into a room and walking up to somebody and just be like, hey, what are you working on? What's a project you're doing? And like, there's such an easy entry point to socialization for a group of people who are probably are more socially awkward on average.
For
And
sure.
just being able to like feel welcome and be like, oh yeah, here's my game at the playtest night. You want to check it out, and you can start talking about that. And it's a very accessible community, I'd say that, which I appreciate
That's good to hear. Yeah.
from the ground up.
Yeah.
It's been nice.
And unfortunately, not everybody is going to live in a, like, it turns out Minnesota is actually one of the great places to we have a great community here. Not everybody, not every place is going to have it. Even Phoenix though, which does not have a lot of game dev, even though it's really big, it's like it's very sparse, and that's where I grew up. And like when I was doing, Deanna and I lived there for a little while doing indie development, and still managed to find a couple other indies there, and we had a little IGGA chapter there that we did. But even just they're out there, people are out there. It's just you gotta try to find them. And I mean, you can get a lot of the same thing from Discord or from kind of virtual chatting, but it's there. For me, there's an important aspect of in person. Just being in the same space as someone is just kind of a different experience. That our brains kind of work a little bit differently, and it just, I don't know, it feels differently for me. But
yeah.
But even just having some sort of virtual space that you're interacting with people, showing, like for me, like I'm kind of notorious for never wanting to show what I'm working on. Very much a perfectionist of like,
it's not ready. It's not ready yet.
Yeah.
Like, well, then when will it be ready? You're like, well, that's a good question.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll go into some of my misadventures and stuff, but yeah. And so just finishing that topic a little bit, like moving back before that, I was in AAA for a few years, back in Austin, Texas. And that was just, I mean, it's still, it was ups and downs, but like some of that time was just some, my favorite memories of
cool.
Like, because you're kind of, I mean, you're in the trenches with other people and you're working, and it's like for me at the time, that I was pretty young and new to the industry, and the amount of stuff that I absorbed and learned on, every single day. And, it's hard to not have that once you've had it, right?
Like that experience.
Yeah. It's hard not to have at least a few people that you respect, and you can learn from each other and talk about things. Yeah. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway for this topic, is just like, if you're listening to this and you don't feel like you have that, right? You don't have a few people, people that, you respect their opinion, you can get second opinions on, you can have discussions. Like it's worth the effort to try to find that. And it's hard to make friends. It's hard to do things in this day and age, right? Like without those spaces that exist that you can just go to, right? But it is worth the effort.
Yeah. I remember I came, my first meeting was I came to, it was your talk on Mega Games,
that was the first time you came?
That was the first time I came. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the after meeting thing. But like at the end of those conversations, everyone starts talking to each other. And I'm like, I have nobody. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'll just go to the next place and be ready. And I sat in the parking lot for like, I was like, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go home. It's fine. That was a good talk. Cool. And then I'm like, this social anxiety, I sat in the parking lot. I'm like, waiting. I'm like, just go in there and go talk to somebody. And it's just like, there's this building social pressure to just like, or anxiety to not go and talk. And then I went in and absolutely great at, getting over that fear and going in and actually doing the thing. I'm like, this is easy and fun and well worth the time. I stayed there for a couple of hours just chatting with people and chatted with you.
Yeah.
So it's something that
was your first
yeah. It's something that, thinking back, I'm like, the cool part about the community is that there's so many different people.
Yeah.
There's people who are years and years and years of doing this. There's people who have just started. There's people who are in the middle of it. There's people like me who are doing it full time. There's people who are doing it as a hobby. There's people who are just showing up because they like, talking to game developers and aren't doing it themselves at this point. And I think that accessibility of a community is really interesting, because you can find the level of that like mentorship that you might be looking for, that person who's been doing it for a while, and you're like, how did you do some of these things? And like, where's your brain at with some of these different ideas, which is really nice. And on top of that, the last thing I'll say about the community is the play testing is invaluable. Like seeing somebody in person, like, because watching somebody play it and like getting a recording of that is great, but like in person, that human being able to see them react and like feel their facial expressions and their body language as they're doing different things
Hmm.
is really, really helpful. And that taught me a lot about my game when I brought it to playtest.
Hmm.
Even though it's like 5 people, which isn't a huge sampling size, but it's like I learned a lot from each and every one of those 5 people checking out the game, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and there's some subtle stuff you can learn there too at the playtest because it's like it's not just the people that play, it's the people
Yes.
that think about playing, or they're looking over the shoulder and like, and they keep walking, or the people the opposite, right? The people they're like, oh, this is that like I want to play
Yes.
this, and they're waiting there. Like,
There's always somebody wanted to take next on the game, and I'm
yeah,
like, that's
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 yeah,
interesting. I'm like, cool.
that's a good sign. Yeah,
It's a good
because that
sign.
doesn't happen all the time, especially
No.
some of the games we have. Like, some of them are early or they're
Yeah, that's how it goes. Some of them
yeah,
are more just like prototypes and stuff like
yep.
that. And
Yeah,
uh,
which is that's what it's there for, is just to try those things, and even just we have a decent amount of students that they have their student projects or they have projects they're working on, and like it can just be good even if it's not a game that will have a commercial release or something. Just like getting learning that process of bringing it, and I like yeah, the couple things I'll say about playtests is like not everybody knows how to do it right either.
mm,
It's like if you're like if I remember right, you were one of the ones that did it correctly, right? Like you knew what you were trying to learn, the
yes,
things that you wanted to test. You would let people sit down and just play the game, and even though you're there, that doesn't mean you're gonna tell them how to play, right? Because you don't get shipped in the box with everybody, right? Like people
no,
have to, yeah. And that was what, and not every game is at that point where they're trying to do that sort of
yeah,
you know that kind of playtesting, but you knew you were, which is good. And not everybody not everybody knows to do that. People don't show up, because of that.
they're
I think
anxious. They're like,
part,
I want you
yeah,
to have fun with the game, and you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
like your goal is not necessarily from like you want them to have fun, but your goal at a play test is to understand where they're not or where they're getting stuck
hmm,
along the line, or you have a different goal and you're saying, yeah, all that stuff will be figured out later.
yeah,
I want you to play the core mechanic and to understand that you need to know these 5 things, and we'll
yeah,
get to that. You do that with your game where you're like, there's no tutorial, so I'm gonna have to
yeah,
like teach you a couple of these mechanics, and then
yeah,
you can like see the fun of it
yeah.
and play with it.
Yeah, like with my game, like it was even that is like I knew that there was no onboarding, like no kind of, you're kind of thrown in there. But I suspected that people that had played, a game like Balatro or Slay the Spire, any kind of, deck builder roguelike, that they would probably get it pretty fast, even without help. And, definitely was able to confirm that. Like the people that I knew were into that
Yeah.
genre,
Yep.
they could sit down and really fast they would they knew to look at what items they have and how things work, and there's a couple of novel things that they had to learn, but it's like they got it really fast, whereas like other people that have not played those genres, they're just like, okay, I guess I just click one of these cards and press the button, and it's like, and it took them a lot longer to learn that, which so it's good to like confirm that suspicion,
That you
because I
got
am
like the
targeting.
flavor of a roguelike, right? Because roguelikes do have a specific, they're all different styles, but there's like a specific like way that games are presented in roguelikes that are like, oh yeah, here's what I'm going to be doing. Like I played Bollock's Pit for the first time last night, and I could
Hmm.
just like you open up, you're like, okay, I can worry about that stuff later, or this is like important for now. And like,
Hmm.
what do you think in your game? Does your game have a name yet, or is
It
that still
doesn't. It
okay?
it it's called Tap right now because you need a project name. But
Yeah,
because in the new year I'll be getting a new artist and deciding kind of if I'm shifting the theme or not based on
sure,
the
sure.
artist, and then I will finally. I know I. It's the longest I've gone without like having an actual name, but yeah, and then we'll start doing
That's
that.
fair. My question is, what roguelike elements or things do you think you did to give players that who are familiar with roguelikes or the card-based roguelikes that ability to like kind of pick it up and just kind of go with it? Or are there a
Mhm.
couple things that come to mind that you're like, those are the staple of that sort of a genre that you added in that helps that kind of like almost onboarding, I think, in a way.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of from the other direction actually. It's like so I this project was uh, a lot more targeted. It was very much like, all right, Deanna, so my wife's name is Deanna. She's an amazing artist. We've worked together for a long time. I would, I would love to keep working with her, but she was like, she was getting kind of sick of like the indie level scope of, because she can do any kind of art. She's great 2D, but her passion is 3D art.
Sure.
High fidelity. She wants to break out ZBrush. She wants that she would love, she wants to use Unreal kind of graphics, not, little indie graphics that in order to finish a game, like you often have to shrink that scope, way down, especially
Yeah, like
the
art scope
stuff,
gets really small because you're like, we can't do 18 frames per animation. We're going to do no frames per animation. It's going to be a still image.
Yeah. So that, and that's always been, I mean, that's always been kind of a struggle with us a little bit, is like finding that balance of like the art that, she's really good at, but also with the small enough scope. And that, we never really, that never got easier, right? It was always like kind of a challenge to do that. So she, she's like, I want to go do this kind of art again. And that's awesome. Like she's super good at it. Like I want to see more of her art. And so she's, started her job search, and that meant that it was like, okay, it's time for, I'm going to do my, like, I still want to finish a goddamn indie game. So I'm going to do a tiny little project that I know that, I'll still need art and other things from other people, but 90% of it is something that I can do on my own, and I will be the sole driver of that. If it fails, it's because I quit, right? It's like no one else can affect that, or I make bad decisions and I run out of money, or all that kind of stuff. But all that'll be on me, right? I can do this. So I play a lot of deck builders. It's one of my favorite genres. And for a little while there, I was prototyping a bunch of different ideas, and kind of stumbled on this particular idea where, I mean, we can talk about it. So Balatro obviously is, a massive success. And I kept seeing the start of these games that were trying to be like Balatro, right? Like they it's like, oh, what if it's Balatro, but with, blackjack or slot machines, or
it's hard not to come up with ideas.
Yeah, and it's like those are cool. Like that's cool. Like that they're, that's great. But like that's not actually what I personally like about Balatro. Like I liked a lot of the mechanical stuff that was happening. Not necessarily like I like poker. I like, that theme, but it's like that's not that sort of gambling theme, or that isn't really what what in my opinion you should take from that game, right? It's just happens to be about poker and jokers and things like that. And so I wanted to take some of the mechanical stuff. So specifically, whenever my Steam page goes up, you'll see pretty fast the idea that you're not just playing one card at a time, right? Like you're actually selecting several cards and playing those at a time. And that, it's a subtle thing, but it's like that actually is super different from every other deck builder, right? Roguelike, right? It's like you're always playing one card at a time. You'll play several on your turn, but you're playing one at a time because each card has its own effects that happen. Where as soon as you start making it where you're choosing a group of cards and playing, then it actually de-emphasizes individual cards and emphasizes more of the jokers or the items or the synergies between those cards. And I thought that was really cool. And I wanted to take that and explore it in a, bring it a little bit back, more traditional deck builders like Slay the Spire, that type of thing. But I wanted to explore more of those mechanics. I think there's a lot that you can do with that. So that's kind of how the game started, is like that felt like the scope was small enough that I felt confident doing it. Prototyped a lot of different, things with that, and kind of pretty quickly found a thing that I think works pretty well. And there's been like a couple mechanical changes that I've kind of gone back and forth. Like for a long time, like I didn't have health. It was still very much like, um, if you run out of cards, you you lose the
Like
battle.
the player didn't have health.
Yeah, which is Balatro, like you if you run out of cards you lose, but it's pretty hard to run out of cards. You're usually running out of um
Hands.
hands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where this is much more of a, it feels more like a battle and stuff. Like it's funny, like the people that play, and then it's like, oh, it's kind of like Balatro, but then it's like it's different in a lot of ways too. That I'm always curious to see people's reactions to that, of like how
Yeah.
what is this?
It's a lot more in
actually feel
between.
like? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And weirdly has some like Monster Train influences in there. Um, but anyway, so the there's been a couple things that wasn't in the original prototype that I liked, but
Hmm.
I've kind of, as the game's gotten a little bigger and changed, like I've kind of added different things that I'm pretty happy with now. And so now, like, I guess we're talking about that project now, but um,
Hmm.
now I have to find an artist, because because Deanna did ended up finding an awesome job. She's working on Subnautica 2, which is like her dream job.
It's really exciting.
Like she loves underwater alien art type stuff, and that's what she's going to be doing. Like we're scuba certified. Like we like underwater stuff, and I mean that was like 90% her wanting to do it and me doing it with her, right? So it's like her dream job, and so it's like it sucks because I really wanted to get this game and be able to, like, her to do the art before she found a job.
Yeah.
And she found a job, and so it's like, okay, all right, I'll find another artist. It's fine. She's
What an
still my
interesting
first choice.
dichotomy between like husband brain, you're excited,
Yeah.
and then you're like development
Yeah.
brain, you're like, that was my artist.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A little conflicting feelings, but ultimately, like, super
Yeah.
happy because, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
That one brain is going to be way. I think that's a good a good adjustment to be like this. I'm way proud. You're proud way more than you are
Yeah.
like sad, which is I think it's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
balance.
Yeah, and it's such a dream job for her. Of,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
doing that kind of art, like.
So as you're working on Tap, was there a moment where I guess this is baked in an assumption too. So maybe there's a question there's like, do you find your game fun? And if so, was there a moment or a mechanic that was added or removed that clicked to make it feel fun for you?
Yeah. I think I do think it's fun. I think that it's always hard to make a game that you can feel like you can play, right?
Especially
Like,
roguelikes, which are designed to be broken, and you're like, no, this
Yeah.
isn't how I designed it.
yeah. I will say that it's a type of game that's oddly compelling, like, because it's very sticky in the sense that, like, when you start getting some synergies in there, like, you want to keep playing to keep building that synergy and see how good it actually is. So there's definitely been times where I'm just testing something, and then I look up and it's an hour later, and it's like, okay, I'm not supposed to be I mean, it's good to do that, but it's like I'm not supposed to be playing right now. I'm supposed to be doing other things. So that, like,
It's a good sign.
yeah, and that happened pretty early on, and that was like, okay, this is like, I can put it in front of somebody, and, like, as long as they can kind of onboard themselves, or they understand the game, like, they'll generally keep playing, which is really good. I forgot what your question was.
You're answering it.
Okay. Yeah.
Was there a moment where it like clicked where it was fun? 'Cause you said early on.
Yeah.
Was there like, yeah, I guess in that early on phase, what was it that like made it all of a sudden be like, okay, this is something I could sink more hours into and see to,
Yes.
The point you're at right now, which
Yeah.
I would argue you're very close to a demo. I know you're changing your theme and stuff, but what you brought to
Yeah.
playtest, I'm like, this could be something that is more publicly available.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think and that's kind of why I need to push to find that artist, because it is, I keep just adding content and stuff to the game, and, like, I need to get to the point where there's a finish line, and the fact that I can't really start, I can't do a Steam page until, like, the actual what it's
Yeah.
gonna look like is in there,
Yeah.
and that kind of
Yeah, I
thing.
agree with that.
So I'll be pushing for that in the new year here. Yeah, the kind of the moment that it clicked, like, was pretty early on. It was sort of the like, one of the main mechanics in the game is, like, With something like Balatro, it's like discarding is a big part of that game, right? It's like knowing when to discard some cards because you're going to get new cards, and kind of knowing some of the odds of like, you know, should I go for the flush here? Should I go for the straight? Like knowing what to do there.
Yeah.
For tap, it's it's not, you're not making a hand of cards like that, right? Like you're looking for specific synergies of different elemental spirits, right? So the thing that the big change really early on with that sort of model was the idea that this is a battle. It's not just a getting enough points. It's like it's a battle, and in battle, one of the main verbs that you have is like defend, right? And so
Yeah.
kind of early on, I kind of stumbled on like, okay, like discarding and defending are the same thing. So you choose. You're not just discarding. You're always thinking about the offense of like how much damage you're going to do. You're going to try to find those cards.
Sure.
But like adding that other kind of dimension there of like, which cards do I discard? Which cards do I use to defend? And now there's a whole other dimension there of like,
Yeah.
You're moving cards over to defend, and that's also clearing up your hand to get other cards to potentially fight with.
Kind of like the silent in Slay the Spire, where there's like specifically you have like targets that you want to discard now. It's like, oh, then that can be a whole mechanic. I could see the whole build being defend based of like doing stuff with specifically your defend discard type mechanic.
Exactly. Yep. So that kind of added that extra dimension there that as a player was really interesting to me, of like kind of knowing, because like the other thing that happens is like when the cards get, they block an attack from the enemy, but then they die, right? Like they die for that battle, right? So you don't have those cards anymore. And so having that, there's a lot of decision space there that I didn't really like it. Whenever you encounter something like that, and as a designer, you don't quite know the implications. That's actually like initially a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because the players aren't going to know the implications either. And that's that they're going to have to learn those implications. They're going to have to, over time, they're going to have to play with that, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to have to learn those things. And that's
it's the thing that hooks you,
right?
It's the thing that literally hooked, like thinking of, I played Bollock's Pit for like 3 or 4 sessions last night. I'm like, first session was fine, whatever. I did some things. And then like, oh, you start combining balls together to like have crazier ones. And there's actually, you want to be doing this. You can get more. There's only 4. And like, there's some implications here. And there's some like mastery that I'm going to have to figure out of what do I take so I can, because like, it seems like not everything can be combined. And like, figuring out those timing and those pacings and stuff like that is going to be like a really interesting mastery thing. And that's what you're talking about with this mechanic. You're like, a player will see this, they'll understand the mechanical, but then not the implications of it, which I think
it's like, how do you build a deck and pick, the different upgrades and things or the items. It's like to utilize that mechanic. It's like, that's a new thing. And hopefully it's, fun for people. I think it is, but I feel like those types of mechanics, when you stumble upon them, like that can be a really good sign that it's like there's game there to explore. There I always think of it in terms of like design space, of like how much space is available for me to explore, both as a game designer, of like adding mechanics and how those interact with each other. How much space is there? Because if it's a very small space, like it's hard to make you can make a small game there, right?
Yeah.
Or you can make a game that, is short or small, or something that you're playing over. There's some story or there's some other reason that you're continuing to play in that tiny little space. A lot of early like JRPGs or things like that, right? Of just like very, very simple, but it's like you're layering other stuff on there that it's. And maybe it's novel for the people that are playing, so it's fine that it's so small.
Sure.
But ultimately, you're going to have to start finding more design space, finding more, because you have to. If you're making a game that's going to last a few hours, you have to start adding other things.
There needs to be novelty. Yeah. Have
you,
you, as you've explored that discarding, defending space, or just the space of your game in general, are there things that you've taken out? Things that you are like, this doesn't actually fit anymore, or like, oh, that part of this design space doesn't help the game. Is there anything in that comes to mind?
I mean, definitely stuff that you think of and it's like, that's, because it's always the two things. It's like, is this actually good design, and is this actually, can I implement this in a reasonable way? Because it's like sometimes you have ideas that especially with tap, like I've had a lot of ideas of like, oh, it'd be cool to have this kind of item that does that, and it's like
Jokers and relics and stuff like that, where you're like,
yeah,
oh, this would be a spaghetti of code to add in.
yeah, it starts becoming like, okay, so now this, I thought of one recently of just like, now this item has to know the history of all the other items that have been used, right?
Yeah. You're
And
like,
it's like,
that
okay,
is bloat. or maybe
like,
not. Maybe
maybe
it's
yeah,
that good where it does need to be added.
yeah, and if there's other, it's like, okay, I'm gonna write that down, but it's like if I ever add a system that does that, or I start thinking of other ideas that could also use that system,
Sure.
then it becomes a feature that you might want. But just for one, one tiny percentage of the content you're thinking of, like, maybe there's other things I can do first before doing that. So there's definitely a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Of like,
so is it like a return on investment, or like expected value of 10 hours to add in that history thing?
yeah,
Does that pay off in some regard in the long run?
yes, and some of that is it's a bit of there's an experience there too of like knowing, getting a sense for that type of stuff of like, okay, here are the things that I know I will have, even though I haven't built it yet. Like, I know I will have this type of thing. Is this going to be a totally one-off type of feature? And you don't always know that if, as soon as you add things, it starts opening up the design space there too, that then you start thinking of cool things that you never thought of. So it's a balance, right? Like sometimes it is worth doing that one thing. 'Cause now it's like, oh, I have all these other things I can do. I remember, so like early days when I was at Sony Online Entertainment in Austin, I was working on DC Universe Online, which is it's an old game now. I'm an old person now. I think it launched in 2011, so that was that was a while ago. Anyway, so like when I was working on that, I remember anytime the programmer, so I was a designer, content designer back then. Anytime a programmer added a new feature to one of our tools, our encounter tool or ability tool, it was like Christmas morning as a designer, just like, oh my God, like think of all the things I can do with this, and all these things that the programmers did not intend for me to do with it, but
right. We're going to stretch this as far as we can and see what we can do with it.
Yes, and that is, I mean, it's true of any game development. Like, you have moments like that, but like, especially back in the day, like MMOs in particular, the amount of content that is built just on layers of hacks. The idea that like a lot of MMOs, I mean, DC Universe had the same thing. Like, the amount of invisible NPCs that are running things, that are making things happen, is like scary, right? Like if you use the console command to like start like turning on
like this visibility
of things, just like, oh my God, like this is that, like
there's just a crowd of people standing like watching the boss fight.
yeah. I think it was EverQuest. So I worked with a lot of EverQuest guys, and they would always tell these stories, and they, for the longest time, they didn't have a timer, so they couldn't like in a boss fight or something, they couldn't have a timer going, right?
Sure.
But what they could do is they had NPCs that could walk a route, and when they reached,
so they built little clocks with NPCs.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And because you're a designer, you immediately make that connection. It's like, wait a minute, we do have timers.
We do.
Right?
We just
put an invisible
they don't
NPC,
look like timers.
Yeah, walking this way and that. Hopefully their pathing doesn't get messed up if a player walks in front of it or things like that. It's like, that's when it's like the programmer brain starts being like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea. But
that's how you're using that? No way.
Yeah. I heard that a lot. Just, yeah, you'd walk over and ask the programmers questions, like, and they'd be like, wait, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Wow. That's I hope that doesn't break. Because a lot of times it does break.
Yeah.
So that, like, having anytime you add that new tool, it can immediately open up all these design space, this design space that was shut off from you, and that can be really cool. It can also lead to scope creep. Yeah. So, and that is also something you have to be a little worried about.
That's a perfect segue into talking about scope creep a little bit, because I think you said you told your wife you're coming on Scope Creepers, and she's like, "That's a perfect podcast for you."
Yeah.
So even looking at even looking at your job where you were a designer breaking developer tools that they gave you in your own projects, when you're coming up with ideas and stuff, what's that interpersonal communication between designer brain and developer brain? How does that work in your game for like your own projects?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely changed over time for the better. I think so. So to back up a little bit, so like at SOE, like, we launched DC Universe. I got to work on like a team for an entire year on an unreleased project that and that was kind of my first time, like, being able to hold some of that creative vision of like what the game is and stuff. Obviously it got stuck in development hell, and like, ultimately I was like, I spent a whole year on this and it's probably not going to happen. Like, so I ended up quitting and going indie back then with Deanna. And, I wanted to make my own mistakes, which, I fulfilled that wish. And so we're on our own, and it's like, I wasn't I had done a little bit of programming, some things, but like I never considered myself a programmer. And that was a whole journey of like learning programming. We ended up working with another guy that I learned so much programming stuff from. And so initially it was very, we can do anything, right? Like we were never trying to do super huge stuff, but it was always like any kind of like indie level game, like we can do, like we have the skills to do it. And it's not that wasn't true. It was just that it's hard. The lesson that I kind of had to learn for a long period of time is like, it's important not to judge yourself based on like your peak performance and then extrapolate from that, right? Like, if I'm working my best, I'm doing this, this amount of hours, I'm happy, I'm doing it. Here's what I can output. Therefore, if I extrapolate that over the course of the next couple of years, this is totally within scope, right?
I'll just be at my peak performance. It's like I'm a great human if all of my needs are met, but as soon as I'm hungry, like there it goes out the window.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And even the longer term stuff of just like, when you're working on your own project, like, you tend to be your own boss, or at least you're making your own schedule, and that's super great to be able to, every day I do that. Like I feel grateful that I can do that. But it also can be hard to not get distracted by other things, or even just important things that come up. Your pet gets sick or something, some other life thing happens. And, now you're focusing on that, and like you have the flexibility to do that which is great, but it's like now you are not even close to your peak performance, right? Like you're
right.
It's some of your worst performance because you're dealing with this other stuff. And, for off and on, it's been like, I know I can do that. Like, I know I can finish this game. I know I can do that. But that is with some amount of the higher level performance. And like, I've just like that bar has gone down and down and down and down for me, of like knowing that is not, even though I know I can do it, it's like, it's not realistic at all to think of it that way.
Yeah.
It like the scope has to be small enough that like assume that all of these things are going to happen, that you're not going to be able to work on it. And so that kind of which seems obvious once you say it out loud, but like it's not a mindset that at least comes easy for me, right? Of thinking it in terms of that, because you want to, when you have skills and you can do certain things, it's hard not to use that as a basis of like judging whether something is possible or not. like obviously, it's like I know I have the skill, I can do this thing, therefore it is possible. It's like, well, there are other factors in life. Yeah, so that I would say that's a big thing. In terms of like the programmer designer brain stuff, I feel like I personally I don't think it separately most of the like time with that. It's kind of like it's not like I put different hats on or stuff like with some things you do have to do that. Anytime I have to open an audio editing program where it's like, all right, I kind of know how to do this. It's like not it's not part of my identity, but I'm gonna do this. Where with the designer programmer stuff, it's like it feels like you're because you're I mean it is a shift.
Yeah.
Like it is like it is a different part of your brain, but ultimately like my design process, like it's incorporating all of I know how these things work already, so I know that
it's more fluid than maybe saying I have this idea, how long do I think it'll take? It's more just like I know how the game works, what ideas just come naturally, and it's more of a fluid kind of back and forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's been I'm thinking back, there's been times where I've put one of those hats on for a long period of time, especially like the programmer hat of like, so like when Deanna and I were working, so the game that we worked on together off and on for many, many years was a game called Keshi, where it was a kind of Japanese cuisine inspired game where you're building a restaurant with your friends. And honestly, like you could call it kind of a friend slop, now that we have that before friend slop was existed or at least was a genre.
Before it had the terrible name of slop. Like
yeah. It kind of I don't know.
I both like it and hate it because it is a little slop, but it's like
it's better than Bullet Heaven. Jeez, like like that's not a genre name. That's a
I'm part of a community who's trying so hard to get it to be a tag on Steam. Like
Bullet Heaven?
Yeah.
Why not Auto Shooter? I feel like Auto Shooter is feels good for that, but I mean it's a name in the sense that you know what the genre is, so I guess mission accomplished there.
Yeah, that's the goal of any name of something. Like I say friend slop, like most people know that, oh yeah, K Peak and RV there yet? Like
yeah, so anyway, so that game, so with Kokeshi, it's like we worked on that. That the scope of that has changed drastically over the years, and like it's a game that I would love to make at some point, but that game there were times where I would go off into programmer land for months at a time, on networking things or even just like so like I don't know, we won't have to get super into programming, but like there's certain styles of programming that I've over time I've shifted to, and like so building systems that support that, or like I went off the deep end for a long time building a whole building system, sort of like a
tooling
Valheim kind of like building things up, but like but with a lot more smart connections and I don't know, it was super cool, but it was like you spend all that time and then it's like
sounds like a can of worms.
Yeah, it's like this would be fine if I was on a bigger team and I was the one doing this, where other people were still building the rest of the game,
and you're like you finish that project and you're like, and now I have to do the rest of the game.
Yeah. Now I actually have to finish the so there's been times like that where it's like you barely get into the design brain. It's like you kind of know what you want, and then it's like, okay, you have to really dive in and go very technical with it.
Yeah. Have you found yourself avoiding stuff like that? That feels, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, as you've gained, because you came from design first, and then now you've gained like developer XP. As you've done that, have you found that your design ideas sometimes you throw out because you're like, this is gonna just take too long?
Absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, if you're not doing that, like something is probably wrong. You know, it's
Yeah.
or at least you start identifying it's like, I know that's going to be hard. Is there a slightly easier way to do that? Or is there a way that I can get,
Yeah.
80, 90% of that in there? And it's not quite, the exact idea, but it's like, it's enough, or I can prototype it really fast.
Yeah.
And maybe,
Can you do it 20% and have someone or yourself playtest or somebody playtest and say, is this fun? Is this good? Does this belong in the game? I feel like that's looking back at my own journey. It's like, that's the first 2 years where like just completely misjudging that or going, just being like, I need to build that whole system and then it'll be good. And then like, those are the things that are like, you're gambling and it's not rolling a D20 needing to hit a 20. It's rolling a D100 and needing to hit 100 on it because you're just like such an inexperienced developer. Your proficiency bonus is so low that you're literally just rolling dice and trying to see if anything sticks. And as I've gotten better at it, it's judging, I guess staying in D&D terms, it's judging things for their DC and trying to pick things that are DC 10 that I can maybe have a 50-50 shot as opposed to, oh, this is a 25, you need to crit for it to work.
Yeah. And honestly, the danger for me, it's like if you can actually define what the difficulty is, right? That's
maybe that's the problem is you have no idea.
Yeah, it's the ones where you either know you don't know, or it's like you start doing it and it's like, wait a minute, there's actually this is a capital H hard problem that I didn't know about. That, like it's like a thing that people are writing papers on. You know, it's like stuff like that when you stumble upon and it's like, oh my god, like no,
like this is an unsolved algorithmic problem that like people are throwing money at to try to solve. Like, oh wait, whoa.
Yeah. Whenever you have to, start looking up, reading math papers or things, it's just like, okay, like, are you sure this is a good? I mean, sometimes it can make awesome stuff, like Townscaper. God, why am I blanking on his name? But I don't know if you ever played the little.
I know of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's more of a toy, right? Like it's not really a point, but it's like you're building this thing, and it uses this. It's called wave function collapse, which is a not a game thing. It's very much a quantum physics type of thing, of the idea of like this possibility space that is. As the player is doing things, it's collapsing and showing these visuals. And like that, like as a piece of tech is amazing, and since then, there's been other games. I kind of fell off a deep end a little bit of exploring that because I you play the game, play it, and it's just like, how is he doing this? Oscar Stahlberg, that's his name. And it's like, how is he doing this? And it's like, you kind of get, like nerd sniped a little bit of just like, all right, I need to know how this works because this seems magical, and it's rare that you run into those things that seem like that. And so, there are times where like if you do stumble upon something like that, and you can actually utilize it, like it can be like a pretty amazing thing to do. That if it was easy, someone else would have done it, right? Like there is an aspect of that.
Yeah.
Of like, if everything is super easy, it's like, then it's easy for other people too. So it's like, if you can choose the right hard problem to do, that it is in your skill set, like that actually is a better idea than just trying to do the easiest thing all the time. But it's not easy to to know what hard problem to actually tackle.
That's actually a context I've started to, I do like game dev coaching on the side, and even just talking to people at like IGDA, TC meetings. It's like, one of the questions I'll ask is like, what's the hard part about that idea? And I ask that to myself too, of like, thinking of a game idea, what's going to be the hard thing for me? Because it's a relative thing too. If you're making it yourself, the hard thing might just be art because I'm not an artist myself. So that sort of context is helpful to just like, try to start thinking through a game in that terminology of like, procedural generation is going to be really key to this idea, and I don't have a lot of experience doing that. Or you do have a lot of experience, and maybe you understand that good procedural generation is really hard to like figure out and get those knobs to be just right. So thinking about tap and how far you are, what's the hard part of that game for you, or looking forward, or what's been the hardest part? Kind of however you want to answer that question is fine. But what is that hard thing for you?
I mean, the biggest thing is the lack of a artist right now of like knowing, because like when I was hoping that Deanna was going to do the art, like I know Deanna super well. I know
And you know her
kind of
skill
art
set. Yeah.
that she can do and that she likes doing. And so for me, like theme is a, you know, it's a vital part of a game. And you know, there are some games that you know, game mechanics that you can do a variety of different themes and stuff. But for me, like it's always been you know, it's been a circle of here's the theme, here are the mechanics, and they affect one another, right? It's like the theme is inspiring certain things, and the mechanics are inspiring certain things in the theme to you know, to tweak the theme. And so not knowing what the game is going to look like exactly,
Right. Like if you design a bloody dagger that deals bleed damage,
yeah,
and you don't have anything that has blood on it, all of a
Yeah,
sudden you're like, what does this mean? Is this a
Right.
burn mechanic now? And you're
yeah,
like,
yeah, and yeah, I mean that's a great example because it's like currently I'm using you know, I have a couple icon packs that have purchased and I'm utilizing, but I like the intention is that all that art is going to get redone,
yeah.
but I also want the game to be pretty playable right now, so it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, so if I want a bloody dagger, there is no bloody dagger. Maybe it's not a bloody dagger. You know, maybe it's a poison dagger because I do have a poison dagger. You know, it's like you
Right.
have those types of things, which can be good. Like I you know, whenever you have those constraints, that is a
Constraints for
great,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. You know, it's great for creativity of like, you know, maybe I don't have any daggers. I only have farming equipment, and it's like, oh, that's, you know, it's like maybe this is kind of like a sickle. You know, it is actually more harvest.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and it kind of changes your mindset. Like, way back when with DC Universe, it's like a lot of the art that I would have to use, already existed. You know, it was a long-term project, and like a lot of the content that we had, it was like the artists had been working on, you know, somebody gave them an asset sheet that I don't know where they got the asset sheet, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, here, we need, you know, it's in a city, so we need cars, we need lampposts, we need all these things that are in a city, regardless of whether we're going to use it content-wise. So it's like, I actually thrived in that environment because it was like, here are all the things I have already. And it's like, what can I make with that? And it's like, oh, if I do this and that, like, so that can be, from a design perspective, like super useful to have that.
Yeah.
You know, versus like a blank page where it's like, you know, where do you even start with that? And you're not really inspired. And so it can be really useful to have that. Another thing I'll say about that is like, so for a while I was doing boss fights on that, and I didn't start out a DC Universe, like DC Comics fan before that, and it's like I had to become a fan because like
Sure.
if I'm
Boss fights, those need to be something that
Yeah.
feels for those people who love the comic books. Like they need to see, like, oh, I gotta fight this thing. What does that
Yes.
feel like in this setting?
Yeah, and even the people that don't, I mean, there's so many heroes and villains that just like, what, you know, because it's been around for 100 years. It's like some of the golden age people are just like, you're this badass, but your vulnerability is wood. You're vulnerable to wood. It's like, what is that? Like, what? That is, you know, or just, I don't know, some of the weird, this is a villain, like we're scared of this guy. Okay,
I'm not supposed to be laughing at this, and
yeah. But it's like when you're, you know, you get handed it, it's like, are you gonna make a boss fight for this? And it's like, okay, it's like part of my process was becoming a fan of that character. You know, like, you know, trying to you can't really force yourself to be a fan, but if there's enough material and you look at it enough, you can start to find things that are interesting, or aspects. There's this one, I think is Evil Star. I think his name was Evil Star. I'll have to look that up, but it was just this super lame villain, and I'm probably butchering this, but like one of his powers was he could make like little versions of himself. And so I'm like, okay, that's a boss fight. That's interesting.
for sure, those are ads.
And so the boss fight ends up being, you know, that the idea that you're, you know, what is it like to fight 100 toddlers or something, right? Of like,
It's that question.
Yeah,
Would
yeah,
you rather
yeah,
fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
yes, yeah. Which I just played an indie demo from Butterscotch Shenanigans. They actually they're doing that as
A game?
a roguelike kind of thing.
Cool.
It's really interesting. It's called How Many Dudes?
How many dudes?
The demo just dropped. It's actually really good. Anyway, so yeah, so you end up doing a group boss fight against these ever spawning little guys that you're just punting around, and it's just like, and that's fun, right? It's like, and so here's like a super lame.
It feels
thing, but it's
novel.
like,
Yeah.
like you dive into that and you find that aspect that is interesting to you, and then you can build on that. And that, it doesn't always happen easily, but it's
Sure.
to me that as a designer, like that can be so and like just enjoyable to like being given those constraints.
Well,
And
the
when
perfect
you are the
thing
ones-
feels where it fits the theme, it fits the
Yeah.
gameplay, it fits the mechanic, and so you're missing that theme constraint, and that's feeling uninspiring when you're trying to come up with like you can come up with cool mechanics, but then you're like it's hard to picture how this all fits in the full picture for, which I
Yeah.
could totally see.
Yeah, and it's hard, like, to bring it back, like the art side of it is it's like I have opinions, but I'm not an artist, so it's like I have I know kind of what I want, or at least I'll know it if I see it, but it's like I have to first. I have to have something to see first, if that makes sense. It's like it's harder for me to just conceptualize it in my head.
Sure.
I have bits and pieces, but it's like so that's kind of why some of the theme stuff, it's like I would have already locked that down. I would have had a name, all these things. But
Yeah.
like I kind of want to, find an artist that I really like, and then just kind of jam with them and find what that thing is together. In a
Sure.
more collaborative way, or at least in a way that I can look at their art and I can start to conceptualize it in my head, and then
Sure. Someone who's a
We'll
bit more
see if-
creative than like you prescribing, here's the theme, here's the style.
Yeah.
You want someone who's like also cares about the theme, and you kind of
Yeah.
find that Venn diagram of like maybe both of your interests that
yeah.
you could kind of
Mm-hmm.
farming equipment, for example.
Right. Yeah. Or it can be hard to find a collaborator for sure.
Yeah.
At the very least, just having an artist with a portfolio that I can see in it, at least some of the art in there can kind of fit, and I can see that. And then even if I have to, still, they're hourly, and it's like, okay, here's what you need to build. That is more than just starting from scratch of just like picking anything. So I don't know. It's also a game that it's like the theme, it's important. The theme is important in every game, but it's also, it's not like wish fulfillment, like a fantasy fulfillment type of thing of like, if you're a space captain, like you do that, it's like, it's not really that type of game.
Yeah.
And it's hard to take existing mechanics and then find that sort of, that sort of theme that it's like, it's like, here are all these mechanics I built. Also, this is wish fulfillment of like, you've always wished to be a train conductor, so here is it's like it's hard to do
Yeah.
that retroactively.
Yeah. Yeah, roguelikes are that interesting thing because it is such a mechanical driven thing. Like people are, at least I'm attracted to a roguelike to like, I want to go into Bollock's Pit and I want to go break the game because I've only played it for an hour and a half. My last 5 runs I lost because I don't understand the balance I needed. And so it's like, I'm looking to pick that game apart. The theme of it all is whatever and fine, but I'm like engaged because I'm like, okay, here's the mechanics. How do I build this little puzzle box to make something that feels immaculate, like my build, my creation?
For sure.
That's really interesting. I could talk about roguelikes for a while, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about mega games.
Oh yeah, wow.
This
we're
is
an hour
impressive.
in.
We've got an hour without. I mentioned it, and we haven't talked about it too much.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, which is most everybody, I think,
Yes.
which is a shame. Can you give a quick? I know you could talk about deeply, but like, what's your like elevator pitch for what a mega game is, and maybe why it's fun?
Yes. So a mega game is it's kind of a cross between like a tabletop role playing game like D&D or something, and and a board game that you play in a room with, say, 50 people or more, right? This is a in-person game that you're playing. It's usually 6 to 8 hours. It's a day event type of thing. So one of the examples would be Watch the Skies, which is a kind of Independence Day XCOM style theme where it's modern day and aliens are invading. And generally, as a player, you're on a nation team. You're on the U.S. team. You might be the president. You might be on going to the UN, the United Nations, as a diplomat. You might be a scientist researching things. You might be the general who going to the war map. And so there's these different aspects that are kind of around the room that you're, there's different mega games, but like some of them are very strict roles. It's like you're going to go over to the war table and move things around the map, respond to alien threats, UFOs, that kind of thing.
Like there's specific mechanics to the game that you'll be interacting with.
Yeah. And it's all happening at the same time. And so part of the fun of the mega game is like you only have a slice of you only know a little slice of what's happening. And because these games tend to be at least some level of freeform aspect of it, right? It's not, you're making these decisions that are affecting some part of it that snowballs and affects some other part of it, and all of that's happening simultaneously. And it's hard to know where to begin with how cool they are. There's a shut up and sit down video that kind of they're a board game review site, but I don't know if you have show notes, we can throw a link in there, but
sure.
Or my talk that you saw, like that gave kind of a cool overview with some different styles of mega games.
It could have been a 4-hour talk, to be honest.
I'm glad Deanna was there to just like, all right, you're way over time. I was like, oh yeah, I could keep talking about this.
But I could have kept listening in that crowd. I think, and a lot of people felt that way too, because it's like you can feel your passion, and you can like. I had never heard about it before, and I'm like, oh, this is, especially as you start getting into the details, you're like, I could see this being a really interesting experience.
Yeah. So I'm part of a group called the Mega Game Coalition, where we run mega games at Gen Con, which is a big board game convention every year. We do other events and stuff too, but this last year we ran a 200-person mega game. That actually had a similar theme. It was sort of Watch the Skies like aliens, and it was a stupid amount of work, and like we had 30 control like moderators, like people helping run the game, which is like the size of some mega games, which is insane. But it was an amazing experience, and like we're happy we did it, and not all of them are that size, right? Like
sure.
The ones that we've been running lately tend to be around 50 players or so is kind of my sweet spot. And they're like, to me, like they're giant story generators, right? Like it's like part of the fun is like you're all there to play to find out what happens, and it's like even helping run the game, like you don't know what's going to happen and what crazy ideas players are going to come up with, and how those are going to interact with each other. And then after the game, we do a debrief, and like ideally you're still hanging out with people and hearing the stories coming out of it, and it's like you start filling in the gaps of your knowledge. It's like, oh, that's why that happened, is because this and this and this, and it's just I don't know, it's worth trying it, once or twice. There's just like any board game or video game, there's different styles. And, some can be really mechanical, some can be more on the freeform side. And so, you're not going to like, even if you like mega games, you're not going to like every mega game you play. So it's worth maybe trying 2 different ones to kind of see. But yeah, if anything about that sounds like interesting, or if you watch the video and it's like, there's a type of person that sees that and it's just like, oh my, like I want to try that. And that's kind of what that video did, is it's like, no one really knew about it outside of the UK. And then that video was put up and people started watching, and it's just like that spawned a bunch of different groups all over, because it's like we can't go to a place, so let's try to run something here.
It's certainly on my list of things to try in the new year and like bring my D&D group to it, 'cause I think they would be like, at least from a experiential standpoint, what an interesting day that would be such a wild experience. Just even once, twice, I don't know, but like it's such a cool idea that I'm like, I can't help but want to, as a designer and game dev myself, I'm like, I want to see some of this stuff in person that you can't really explain through a slide deck. I think one of the most interesting things or challenging things that as I like watched your talk was building a game with mechanics that have balancing and stuff like that, and not being able to really test it live, right? Like you can test your roguelike, you can open it up, you can play it, you can see, does things work? Do things just immediately become degenerate and like break? When it comes to mega games, how does that work? How do you dig into some of these mechanics and understand if they'll work, if they'll be good? Is it relying on existing game kind of mechanics that work, or are you like, how does that work when you're trying to like tweak stuff or balance things for future games?
I think, I mean, ideally you are building on something that exists. I mean, it's true of any kind of development, right? It's like if you're trying to reinvent the wheel, like you don't really know what's going to happen, right? Whereas if you are more taking existing things and that this works, and then you're adding new, you're innovating and or doing it with a different theme or things like that, that's a lot safer in the sense that you have a foundation that you're building on. So ideally you're doing that. That's hard when like mega games are a pretty young genre relatively, like in terms of the design space that's been explored. That's part of why it's actually exciting, is because like there's so much that hasn't been done, or because even if it's like, because it's so spread out as a community too, it's like people will have similar ideas, and it's like, oh, what if we did this? And it's like, it turns out some group actually did kind of something similar there, but it's slightly different or things like that. And that
you may not be able to understand why it didn't or did work because you weren't at the thing and didn't feel, and you could have been at the thing and you were not a part of the events that transpired of that mechanic to really understand. Oh, what a limiting aspect of the genre itself is like with video games, the iteration and the mutations of, even like looking at like Balatro, like those iterations are happening so quickly that you're seeing these changes that people are trying out and seeing what does and doesn't work. With mega games, you don't get that as easily because it's a in-person medium.
Yes. Yeah. And there you can try to play test them. You can get at least part of the game and get a little bit of that. There's certain things you can learn. There's definitely things you can't learn with that. And then there's all these other variables you throw in there. Like even if you have a solid game, because they to some extent have to be facilitated by your control team or your moderators, right? Like if people are different, like if you have a moderator in there that's really good at a specific thing but not another thing, hopefully they're in charge of the thing that they're good at. Doesn't always happen.
Like they got the econ question and they're like, I don't know, just you get all the money. Here's the money.
Yeah. So, and for me, I'm definitely more attracted to more of the narrative type games. I at least pre-COVID, I was my super big hobby was story, like role-playing games, tabletop games, like that type of thing, and that's always the types of games that I would play were always more story game, narrative type games.
Yeah,
you could do, they're a little more freeform, or they're at least not quite D&D, like different games out there, and so that's always something that interests me a lot, and that's true of mega games too. But you're not sitting at a table with a small group of people where you can see their faces and you can interact, and you can get a sense of, are they actually angry? Are they just having a good time? Like
you're like DMing with like so many blinders on.
Yeah. And not everybody is good at those roles too. So it can be a struggle to find the right control team, the right like moderators to put in there in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't find that, or if you think you do but it's not like that, then problems that you did not foresee can start happening, and that can be hard too. The flip side of that is we have a thing always people always say is like the players had fun, right? So if you have a good control team, you can take any shitty game and you can make it pretty fun for players. You know, it's like they might have complaints or something, but it's like because it's sort of like if you think of D&D or some other game like that, it's like even if the design is not great, if you have a good game master in there or a good group of people in there, you can still have a really good time.
Yeah.
And because mega games are kind of a combination of that, of the idea that there are rules, there are systems in place, but a lot of it is up to the moderators running it. If you get experienced ones in there, people that are just really savvy at that thing, you can kind of just throw a bunch of weird stuff mechanically, and then they'll figure it out on the fly. It's not, that's not the ideal, right? Like there's still a lot that you need to do as a designer to set those situations up and give them the tools to help run the game. But it's different than just like it's not a board game in the sense that here's strict rules, right? Handing out, everybody has to follow the rules, and you hope it's good design because it's going to be pretty clear pretty fast that if it's not, right?
But because your moderators, you get to have a pulse on it, and if people aren't having fun, do you find the fun in that moment?
Yeah.
So then does any one session feel anything like another one of the same game, same rule set? Do any two feel similar at all, or do those days feel so unique and so special in that way?
I think even no matter what mega game, if you run it a lot, like run the same game over and over again, there are going to be drastically different things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But there also is going to be a lot of similar things because people have a lot of similar, they're
like stereotypical kind of cliche stuff they do.
Yeah.
And
it's like any modern day, like watch this guy's like, there's going to be a nuke at some point, somebody, it's like, I always joke that like, we hand a stack of nuke cards to a player and say, don't use these. Don't use this giant stack of things that you're not allowed to use them. Nukes are bad. They have bad effects. Don't use them. And it's like, of course they're going to use, it's like you're staring at that the whole game. Like the game's about to end. It's like, I'm going to use my nukes,
just nuke.
So
yeah.
that, and that's actually mechanically, that's what you have to think about is like
there's no tomorrow. Yeah, I think you said that in your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Last Turn Madness is a whole thing of like, of dealing with, it's like, yeah, if there's no tomorrow or people are like, they had this plan the whole time and now they're going to have to try to frantically do it. Like it can be a huge crunch.
Do you design around that then with like end game, like trying to make those things be part of it in a way that aren't so like chaotic, like nuking a whole nation or something?
Yeah. I think that, you try to, so kind of what I was going to say is like, you sort of create with a theme and the mechanics, you sort of create these kind of grooves in the design that people naturally tend towards.
Sure.
And you can kind of guide those grooves in certain directions that hopefully fit the theme really well and are fun. Whether people go down that road or at least hopefully they're tending to end up in these locations. That doesn't mean the narrative is always going to be the same, right? Like there might be things, but if you're making a game that about scarcity and there's not component scarcity of like, if people end up with too much stuff, like you're never gonna have that sort of theme or narrative come about. It's like people feeling like, these resources are super valuable, right? So if your goal is to do that, like you have to make sure that it's balanced in a way that, these things
actually
are
create
scarce,
scarcity.
right?
And your mod team maybe knows that that's a goal
Yeah.
or something you're trying to work towards, so they don't just like insert inflation accidentally
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
decision they make.
Right. On the flip side, so the first mega game I designed and I've run a lot is called Deep Haven. It's basically Dwarf Fortress, the mega game, right? It's a bunch of players are from different dwarven clans and cultures, and they're coming together and they're building a new home for all dwarves, building a new fortress.
Cool.
And in that game, it's like there's specific theme things that I try to support mechanically, but ultimately it's like if people understand the theme already, like they're going to bring their own idea. You know, they've seen Lord of the Rings, they've seen, you know, they've played Warhammer, they, you know, all these games that have these sort of dwarven ideas in that, like they're already going to bring those with them.
Mm-hmm.
And
The game's not in a vacuum.
Yeah, yeah, and so your mechanics kind of need to support those things happening, but they don't necessarily. It's like you don't have to make strict rules that's like you must craft a dwarven hammer. You know, it's like this has to be a thing. It's like people are going to want to do that.
Yeah.
So you kind of think of it from the other angle of like you're not making an action that they can do to build a hammer. It's like you are designing a system that when they want to do that, they can utilize this system.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's it's a because it's so new and because it's so chaotic sometimes, because it is so much about the team of moderators coming together and hopefully being on the same page, there's so much flexibility and there's so much unknown there too that can be kind of scary as a designer, but also like really exciting too, of just
Sure.
like you know,
at a certain point you have to run the game. Yeah. Looking at game development and mega games and thinking about them maybe in terms of businesses a little bit. I think you got a question maybe during the talk about it as well. Where do you see a return on your investment? It could mega games fit somewhere into being a full-time kind of mega game runner, or that being part of it, or part of its indie game? Like, how do you see that going and like allocating time and stuff like that? Like where's your brain at with kind of running mega games versus making games, virtual games?
Right. I mean, I always say that it's like mega games are supposed to be my hobby. And kind of going back to the earlier conversation of you know, being distracted by life things or being, you know, pulled in other directions. I mean, to me, that is what mega games are. It's like it's something that I'm passionate about, but I've never saw it as the primary thing I should be doing.
Yeah,
it's a secondary like fun thing to do. Because like honestly, the economics are just not really there in my opinion to like make a living on that. Like, and I don't actually know. I don't actually know if it will ever get there, you know, like even if it becomes a lot more popular, because it's hard to, if you think about like escape rooms as a business or something, right? Like that, there was kind of a boom and bust there of, and if you just think about the throughput of like, you have a group going through every hour or something, and you probably have one employee that's kind of managing that. And that's it. That's a much smaller room. It's smaller scope in terms of all the things that are happening. And if it's hard to make that business work, try running.
Yeah, you have one moderator and one small room. It's not even a big room. It's like a small, it's probably smaller than the room I'm in, right? Like, let alone having 10 moderators, you need a big convention area. Then you need 40 players to where like an escape room's 3 players or 4 players can be fine.
Yeah. So unless there's so much demand that you can charge a lot of money for the tickets, because you know, if it's a business, you're going to have to, you know, pay something to your moderators. You're going to have to do that. Like the economics of it just start to get really difficult. And like there's a couple of people that I know that they run mega games, but they also do it for like corporate retreat type stuff, or even like a lot of, you know, military sim, like government training. Like there's some people in the UK that do, they basically run a mega game as like an emergency response type thing, you know, that are training people. There's all those types of things that could potentially be a route.
Yeah.
It kind of shifts it quite a bit. So really, ultimately, it's like I've never thought of it as a potential career type thing, or even a way to, you know, I try not to lose money. You know, it's like we charge tickets. I'm always the guy trying to raise our tickets prices because like we, you know,
Yeah.
it takes a huge amount of time and effort to run these, but it's supposed to be a hobby. That is that is the idea.
Yeah. It seems logistically like it'd be a hard thing to scale up because you'd probably need to do the corporate events, doing them at cons and having them be, especially the cons is like, that's probably where the higher ticket prices could come in. You could do something where you're like selling a kit that allows and enables other mega games to happen. And like,
Yeah.
that would be a very, I feel like it would have to be the whole business idea. It would be like diving deep into mega games, and that feels really risky. Like looking at like that time investment, return on that investment, that's a hard one to understand. Does it even pan out?
Yeah.
Where like there's a huge industry of video games.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, not that it's easy by any means.
No.
You know, it's, in some ways it's weirdly, I mean, it is easier to run a mega game, even if it's not a very good mega game, like it, you know, in terms of actually making it and running it and stuff. But with video game, you know, you can make a game and then it can sit on the shelf and just, you know, make you a couple bucks over time.
Distribution solved. Right. Like Steam takes that 30% cut, but like you don't have to reach out and find places to do it. You don't have, there's not like ongoing upkeep and continual stuff to get that going.
Yeah. And I think like it, for me, we'll see how the next year goes. But I still consider myself primarily a video game developer.
Yeah.
Although it's, you know, indie life is rough. Sometimes you just pour hours into things that don't ever see the light of day. And like, I think I told you before that like when you joined our local community, it was like, I really appreciated what you're doing because we have a decent amount of like full-time developers, either working for somebody or full-time indies. Obviously we have a ton of part-time or hobbyists or students and stuff too. But there are some of us that are trying to do full-time, but it's rare to do full-time, but also be thinking about the viability of the product. It's like, how long is this going to take me to build?
Yeah.
What is my return? Am I going to finish it first? And then what is my return? And so I very much appreciate like, you know, the fact that you're cataloging everything too, and you can go back and look, but like the idea that you are thinking about that from day one of like, you know, what is the actual product here? Because it like that is something that indies struggle with in particular. Because everyone wants to make their dream game, but you know,
yeah, it's a relatively new thing for me to be thinking about that in this way too. It's like I need, if I actually wanted to keep this being something that could be sustainable for my life, I have to start making more money from it. Yeah. And that's not. It was like, or do I just become a hobbyist again and go find a full-time job? Because like, if I'm not making profit for a long time, all of a sudden that starts eating into my future stability and, you know, life as a retirement account. Like this is like, there's like long-term implications and stuff where in the short term, it's like, well, whatever. Yeah, I'll eat a little bit less food or, you know, not buy, I can not go on vacation this year. It's fine. Yeah. I'll buy a little bit cheaper coffee, right? Like, there's small things you can sacrifice in that regard, but in the long run, it's like, how do I become that? I would say looking forward, one of my goals with IGDA is to like try to get more people to have more games released next year.
Yes.
That list, I'm like, it's cool to be on there. But I'm like, I want that picture to be so many more games in the new year. And so trying to find ways to help encourage that, and like, not all of them being, oh, how do you quit your job and do this full time? But even like, how do we bring some of these ideas and lessons to make them more accessible? And so I'll be interested to cook up something in the new year, whether that's just volunteering more or X, Y, and Z, finding some way for me to be more involved in helping people try to reach a dream of theirs, whether that's just getting a game on Steam, getting their dream game on Steam, or you know, anywhere in between, right? It doesn't have to be Steam. I suppose it could be Itch and all those different things.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Like building smaller games is, that it's something that you get told. It's like you gotta build, think about what you want and then shrink it, right? It's like you need a smaller game.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like over time, it was, I know that wisdom. I try to follow that wisdom, but what you think of as a small game is still, it's always inflated, right? It's always like, even the smallest game still has to have all this testing, has to have an options menu, a main menu. It has to have, does it support gamepad? What about the Steam Deck? It's like, is it going to be localized? Is it going to be, all these things that like even the smallest game has to have this huge layer of stuff that you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's not even the game. Like the hard part is still making a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I have a lot to say about that, but maybe
one of the challenges is too, like for me, I had to go make big games so I could understand the small game.
Yeah.
Like I have to do mistakes. I have to like make those mistakes and like actually learn from them and actually grow from them. It's hard for me to like see a lesson online and then be like, oh, I have to go do the thing to like, okay, now I understand it from my perspective. My experiences do align with that as an outcome. So then making a small game is helpful.
Yeah. Like the biggest thing I'll say on that is it's helpful to think of finishing a game as its own skill. And as soon as you start thinking of it that, it's like, I don't have that skill. It's like that is a skill that I need to develop.
Yeah.
And, you could have every other skill in the book. If you don't have that skill,
games won't get done.
Game out.
Yeah.
You'll spend all this time. And it's like that for me, the amount of, I've spent a lot of time with game development, but that is a skill that I still am working on. And arguably that might be the most important skill, right? At least from a, like if you can't finish a game, none of the other stuff matters, right? Maybe you're being fulfilled, maybe I guess if you're being paid, I guess I'm thinking in terms of running your own projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're working on someone else's project or you're, forced to finish these things, you don't need that skill. But if you are running your own project, you have to have some level of that skill before you can really...
It certainly seems like maybe it's the top tier skill or goal, finish a game, and then it's like, how do you start slotting in sub goals that you need to learn along the way? And like one of the early sub goals is like, do I enjoy making games? Like, how do I find the enjoyment and the thing that's going to keep me doing this for a very long time? Because it takes a long time to learn how to do anything. Like, it's something I'm trying to be vocal about with like a game of Feeding Black Hole is like, this didn't happen overnight. Like, I've been at this, thinking about it day in and day out, not the game, but like game development for years at this point. Like, thousands of hours have been poured into making games. It's not something that comes about naturally overnight. There's so much learning, there's so many disciplines to dive into. But certainly getting to the point where you can actually finish a project is a non-trivial and very difficult skill to have that has to be thought about and at least figured out of like, I have this thing, I have this really great toy, how does it become a game that is finish is also not a great word because games are never finished. They're always they're just released. But like, how do you get a game to that? Like, you could put it on the shelf and be done with it and like move on to the next project is a good skill.
Someone other than you can download the game and play it. Ideally, buy it and play it.
Yeah. Very cool. I mean, we covered a lot of the topics I'm interested in. Maybe the final question that I'll ask you is how do you manage scope creep, and maybe a lesson you've learned along the way that's helped you figure that out, or something, I don't know, somewhere insert scope creep comment here.
I I think that the honest answer is I don't think I have. I don't think I I can point to things that show that I have these skills and that I can do this. But for me personally, um the if we think in terms of like creative projects that I've finished, there's always been some external reason that I'm forced to do it.
Like you picked a date
Um,
for the mega game to be.
exactly. Yeah, and that is
Hmm.
that is something. I mean, to bring it back to mega games, it's like the weird thing about running games at Gen Con is it's this massive convention,
You
right?
can't move it.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't be like,
always,
hey, Mr. Gen
yeah,
Con, can this be on a different day?
exactly. Yeah, it's in August, and the Mega Game Coalition, like we have to submit our events in January,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
which means internally, we have a bunch of different communities that submit games to us first to run. That means we have to have people submit games in December because we need time to so and I actually just went through that whole process of
Yeah.
I promised myself I
Is that why you
was gonna
ran a
have
game in December?
uh no
Because I
no
thought you
like
ran
so
one in Minneapolis, right?
we occasionally run games here. Our last one wasn't. It was a when was that? It was a while back. We were supposed to run one in December, but we
Sure.
that yeah. It's funny how little I actually. My friend Lucas here gets the games organized here, and I just like I'll help. I'll
Yeah,
totally
that's
be
nice.
there and help run it, but like you gotta do all the work. So it's like this next year. Looking into this next year, like I'm gonna release my video game because I'm a video game developer.
Yeah.
That is my primary goal. And so I was, but I know I'm going to Gen Con. I'm going to help run games there. And it's like, I didn't know what I wanted to run. Did I want to run the same game? It's like, so I just helped run games at PAX Unplugged in Philly, came back with a case of inspiration. It's like, this is
I'm
not the
sure.
time.
I'm sure running a mega game is the best way to want to work on more mega games.
Yeah, yeah. And I helped run this game that I hadn't done in a long time, and it was just so it was like I want more games like this to exist. But because of what we were saying, like I made a rule that I am no longer gonna just sign up to run a new game without it being designed first, because that's stupid.
You're opening yourself up to like infinite scope creep.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
or
Yeah.
infinite work. Like you don't know what the bound is on your investment in that project.
Yeah, and you don't even know if they like. So in last year, I ran into this where I thought I knew what the game was, and then I submitted to run it, and then I did a couple play tests and realized that the game, as I envisioned, was not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I had to shift kind of the focus, and ultimately, like what the game ended up being was very different, and it needed just a huge amount of work to even just creating the components and stuff. Like it ended up being like there's over 4,000 cards, physical cards that I had to print and sleeve and
Jeez.
call in the cavalry to come help me and stuff.
Yeah.
But and it's just like I can't work on my video game when like doing this, right? It's like so it's a huge distraction, and it's like some of it's fulfilling and it creatively and like something I'm passionate about, and it's nice to be able to do that. But like that's not I'm supposed to be focusing on video game development. So long story short, like so I did design a new game, but like I designed like 90% of it before I submitted it.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm not going to run into that next year, hopefully. But it's hard not to get pulled in those directions.
Especially when it sounds so cool. I can see that being really challenging.
Yeah, I forgot what your original question was. I feel like
Scope creep, and I'm about to ask, can you? It sounds like deadlines helped you with mega games and non-movable deadlines, and I've always found like Steam Next Fest and like a deadline for a game about feeding a black hole made it a 100% better product.
Yeah.
Can you find a deadline for your game? Or you ask your question first.
There, I am curious because deadlines, like that is the only way apparently I can finish a thing.
Yeah.
However, it can kill you. It can cause you literal harm sometimes
Sure.
when it turns out it has to consume your life for some amount of time before the deadline for you to ever actually finish the game. Sometimes you have to crunch if that deadline is not, appropriate or other things happen.
Yeah.
So for you, it was like, how was like, we don't have to get in too much of like crunch culture and all that, because like I think there's some silliness there, but like for you, like you just launched a game, like how was the month or two beforehand, like the lead up to it, like were you
It was really nice. I didn't crunch at all.
okay, that's awesome.
One of
Yeah.
my goals is to manage myself the way I've always wanted to be managed, and that is understanding like a core principle is that long-term gains and success should always be over short-term gains. Like don't do decisions and things for short-term success, which is really hard. Like right now I'm trying to take vacation, and there's also this pressure of like 10 hours spent now probably has a higher return on my investment than 10 hours in late January.
You're saying for updates of the game and
For
things?
updates, yeah. If I finish roguelike mode over this time while the game's still being pushed on Steam, there's probably a higher literal dollar return on investment of my time now because of higher concurrent users, because of the Steam blah 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 blah, than my time in January. But I'm here for the long haul, and me taking time off right now to play classic WoW again for the nth time, making a Night Elf Hunter, like there's value in me in the long term, resting and relaxing. So that also went into this game, and I think one of the things that we did really well is we picked a time horizon for how long we wanted to work on this game, and we picked a game that could be made in that time.
Yeah.
I think I've picked ideas like Hexagod was supposed to be a game that was also supposed to be done tight, but it was not a game that could be made in that time. I thought it was, and I was wrong. But I think with a game about feeding a black hole, we actually picked an idea that could be made in 5 months. Where if I picked a 10-month idea and tried to fill it into 5 months, that's going to lead to having to do that crunch at the end. So we did delay from November 11th to December 15th, mostly because of the amount of wish lists we had and the opportunity in front of us. Delaying would let us make the game better, do proper play testing, have it be a successful launch. Turns out it was a good decision, but I didn't have to crunch during that time. I was very conscious of decisions being made and things that we did to say, what can we actually fit in the next 30 days here? And then the things we can't do, let's put them on a to-do list for the future, or we'll never actually get to them because we're just trying to make this like actually well-scoped idea, which I think is only something I was able to get to by working on it with my dev partner, Thornity. I don't think, me left to my own devices, I don't know if I'm able to actually understand which things are worth doing and which things are not worth doing. And like having someone to bounce that off of really helped kind of nail that down. So then we didn't have to crunch. Like I played Path of Exile 2 the weekend before launch because we were ready, we were done. Which was so weird. And a skill that only came from having finished and released 2 other games. So Hexagod, Chess Survivors, absolutely crunching last week. It was crazy hours and I didn't like it. So a skill that I've developed over time is how to do that without crunching.
Good. Which you can only develop if you go through that process. Like you have to release a game to get that.
I almost guarantee the anxiety before the first time you press the green button on Steam is enough to get you to crunch accidentally. Like
right. Yep.
Because it is stressful. It is scary, and it wasn't any less scary this time around. I just felt more prepared for it this time around through having experiences of having done it in the past. And even having less pressure knowing that it wasn't my last game. Like I think there's a lot of pressure in the game dev space that this first game is my dream game and that it has to be perfect. And if people hate it, then they hate me. And that's just, that separation is maybe more important to just be like, it's a product I've made and we've made mistakes and we'll learn from them and grow as we go.
Yeah, definitely. As I've gotten older, I value the idea that as long as some people love what you're making, that's what you need to focus on. Like, not everyone's gonna like it, and some people are not gonna like it. But
Yeah.
like, as long as there's a few people that really love what you're creating, like,
Yeah.
yeah, easier said than actually
Oh yeah.
live that. But yeah,
Absolutely. Any last final thoughts before we go here? I missed the IGDA meetings this month. It's like
I do too.
want them.
Yes.
Like, so I'm excited
Yeah.
for January.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that I could ask you and stuff. But you also have a whole YouTube channel, and I've only watched half of it, so I need to, there's probably, but I've been excited to see, the fact that how transparent you are about like showing how things are going, and
Yeah.
I think that's really great.
Yeah.
I think that I've heard you say it a couple times where you're always quick to qualify that it's like it's not just it's not easy, it's like it's all these skills and experience coming together. Even if it looks simple, it's not. And that's something that, every skill is going to have people that don't realize how hard something actually is. But like, especially indies, like they see games go up and it's like, oh, I could make that. And it's like, you don't realize all of the time and effort, or at least all of the failure that they had to experience to get there first. Yeah, so it's nice to see the whole the whole process.
Yeah, I guess I hope in the long run that someone could watch the channel and see me go. Like, someone posted a comment at one point. They're like, I stopped following you because I thought I was watching a tragedy occur. And then they're like, and then now you're having success, and I feel guilty for having
Wow.
unsubscribed. And I'm like, it's
Wow.
yeah, but I could see how you'd watch someone and be like, oh god, this guy's just throwing his money away right now. Like, this is hard to watch. Like, but then now in context, you see it's like, oh, it's growth. But like in that moment, it does not feel like growth. In that moment, it feels really bad, and it does hurt, and it is hard to look at. And only in the long run can you look back and say, oh, I've grown, I've learned, I've done these things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the in the moment it feels any better. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking back the last 10 years. If I had cataloged it and put it publicly, like I think they would have been right for a while. Like, what are you doing? Maybe that would have been good.
Like, you're spinning your wheels. You're like, yes, but I need to do that so I can finally find traction. Like, it is how it goes, which sucks. But it's like, if people are in that, like, know that you have to go through it, and your path looks completely different than my path or your path or anybody else's path, and that's kind of life, I guess.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I'll have you back on when you release your game this year.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, then I'll probably have more to
Or
say.
not, if you don't release your game, I'd love to have you back on at some point. If not, I'll talk. Was the first night, is it a jam night?
Yes.
Which I've never been to, and now I'll probably go to just to hang out. So
yeah, it's super chill. You just work on whatever, and you end up chatting a bunch too. So
yeah, if you've gotten this far and you live in the Twin Cities, come stop by Wednesday nights at like 6:30 ish.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Look us up if you're join the Discord, igdatc.org. Yeah.
Sweet.
It's good community.
Well, thanks for coming on. This was a blast.
Yeah, this is great.
And it's really snowy outside right now, so
I know, I'm watching it.
yeah, it sucks.
What a lovely conversation. I hope you have an amazing start to your new year. I think New Year's resolutions are something that I personally have always really appreciated. Funny enough, I had a blog with a buddy back in 2018 that I don't think you could even find on the internet anymore. But we had a blog. I don't know why it wasn't a YouTube video. It should have been a YouTube video or a podcast like this. But we had a blog that was just about kind of writing our thoughts down. And one of the things I did is I processed what New Year's resolutions meant to me. And I think the act of creating a New Year's resolution is helpful for me because at the end of the day, even if the resolutions don't stick, you have to take a moment to reflect upon your life, what's currently happening, where you want to go, what changes you want to make, things you want to do to try to live the best life possible for yourself. And I think the act of doing that and having a trigger event being being the new year is a lovely thing. Ideally, you're checking in with yourself all the time. But if you need something like that, I hope you find a New Year's resolution. And my only tip is to think about why. Why do you want to do the thing? Why do you want to do weight loss? Why do you want to go to the gym more? Why do you want to learn that new thing? Why do you want to like for me, like I want to be cutting out THC from my my regular diet. I don't know if that's true, but like I was having a lot of seltzers, the THC seltzers, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have a month off where I'm not having any of that stuff. And why do I want to do that? Quite frankly, I think it's helpful to process emotions. And I watched an In a Nutshell video by Kurzgesagt about how THC can kind of prevent you from actually getting to process emotions correctly. So I'm hoping to do some things in January, long term, go to some sort of convention. I had some other goals too. Oh, I want to read a bit more. I've been reading a lot, and I'm trying to get a little bit better at that. So I've taken YouTube and Twitch and all the stuff off my phone, so that when I go to bed now at night, I'm going to try to read before bed. There's simple little changes that I'm hoping to stick with a little bit in the long run, and then just even so paying attention to myself throughout 2026 and implementing the things that I think will make myself better. Yeah. I hope you had a great new year. Yeah. That's it. Thanks for watching. If you're at this point and you're at the very end of this and you're still listening to me ramble about New Year's resolutions and stuff, that's cool. I appreciate that. I appreciate you all. I'm excited for more podcasts to come this year. And without further ado, I don't know. I'm just going to wrap up here. I need to go have some coffee. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.